Hello, Wickle Treat members. Welcome back to the podcast. We are now on season 2, and I'm proud to present you the surprise that I've been holding back for 10 episodes now, and I've been planning this for a good 2.5, pre 2.5 months before the podcast that I've been letting out. Now, this season, as I've explained, is going to be slightly different from the first season, where I just talked about different, phases and different topics in the market and just in the kind of personal life in general. This is more going to be around books and reading. Now, I just want to emphasize that reading is potentially one of the most important things that you can do, within life and within your trading career and within business. And I'm sure who I'm about to introduce you to can agree. But so this is going to be basically a paired podcast season with one of my very, very, very good friends, business partners, consider him even a brother. He's happily joined me today, and he's on the ball with trading as well. Same age, both got the same mindset. So it's Zanyar. Welcome, Zanyar, to the podcast.
What's going on, Wickle Treat members? What's going on?
This is so cool. We're going to get started. He's going to be here with me. I'm going to be kind of more like the host, and we're just going to be talking about different books that we've read and how we, what they're about and how, how much we'd rate them and stuff like that. But let's get started. So we're going to kind of talk about the topic of investing, and then maybe you can maybe guess what the book is. Obviously, before we announce what it is. So investing, Daniel, what would you say investing means to you? What is investing kind of, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word investing?
Well, what investing is essentially is literally just putting your money to work. It is putting your money into a vehicle that only requires, it doesn't require constant input. You put in the money, you do your research before, you learn about everything you're about to invest into, and once you put it in, it's a vehicle. It's a self-driving vehicle. You don't really need to touch it much. So it's a lot different from, something like trading or a job where it requires constant input.
Exactly.
So,
and investing it doesn't necessarily mean monetarily. It can mean time. It can mean, the friends or the people that you spend time with. It's investment of self, investment of money, obviously investment of time, investment of health as well. What are you putting your health to as well? And it's key, like Zanya said, it's key. You can't really survive in this society, in this current economy, not investing, right? You all do some sort of investing. You've invested in
everybody.
Exactly. You've invested in education right now to obviously be here in this podcast, and you've invested time to listen to this podcast as well, which is honestly really great. Now, obviously, it's very essential when it comes to business. I'm sure Zanya could agree with me here. It's
definitely
one of the biggest things and most important things you need to learn. All right. And what can kind of help you with business? What can kind of help you, with business and with investment that we're going to be talking about today is the famous entrepreneurial book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, written by Robert T. Kiyosaki. There's 2 versions you can get. You can get like the smaller version and the bigger version. I think the bigger version is the 20 years one. Have you got the smaller version?
I've got the smaller one, yeah.
And I've got the larger version, so I'll be able to obviously get, kind of give you what's in there. Is your one got like quotes from like 20 years ahead?
Yeah, mine does say the top 20 years in the top.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. Yeah, it is that one.
It's a
very old book.
Exactly. So
applies to today.
Yeah. So when you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, Zanyard, what did you kind of interpret? What did it make you feel? What did you learn? Go on, let me know.
Well, what the book is essentially about, it's about how to become financially free. And what financially free essentially is basically making money that can cover your expenses, your lifestyle without working. Basically, it is literally your investments putting, your money getting put to work. That's what the book is about. You're putting your own money to work, and they're covering your expenses essentially. So you're not putting any more hours for your money, and it's just generally a lot about how like the rich are winning, because obviously a lot of people do say that there's a big gap, a wealth gap between the working and the middle class and the rich, and it's the whole book is about why there is that wealth gap, why rich people are much more ahead financially than the working and middle class.
Exactly, and I love the statement. I love the quote: "The rich get richer and the poor get poorer." You know,
Yeah.
it's great. The poor and the middle class. No offense to them, but they don't truly understand the difference between an asset and a liability. You yourself, your family, your friends, any loved ones may not understand the difference between an asset and a liability purely because they haven't been
Educated.
they haven't been educated financially. Exactly, like they don't have the right financial education, and he really does emphasize that in the book. And it's a great thing. He even says on the front cover here, what the rich teach their kids about money that the poor and middle class do not. Exactly that. So what I've kind of learned from the book is that, like Zanya said, having a workless amount of money that is greater than your expenses be working for you, right? I love the metaphor that he said, not the metaphor, but kind of like the saying. He says, have every single dollar in your bank account work for you, or have every single pound in your bank account work for you, because ultimately that's what you want. You don't want to be working for that. You want it to be working for you, and that's entirely what it is. You need a passive income greater than your expenses. If you can do that, you don't have to touch the work. Obviously, there'll be the few here and there and stuff, but yeah. So yeah, cool. We're going to talk about like what our favorite bits are in the book, and we'll be talking about what our least favorite bits are, and then just a bit of other stuff. So my favorite bit personally was the story he told about when he went on a run one time. So as I don't know if you know, Robert Kiyosaki is obviously very famous, wealthy investor in things like real estate, property, and all that type of stuff, right? He was going for a jog one day, and he ran past a house, an apartment that was on sale for a certain price. And he in one morning he was on a run, and he saw the owner of the house come out the house, and obviously negotiated a deal with him. I think it was, I can't remember how much less for the asking price was, but he did obviously get it lower than the asking price. And about 5 hours later, he sold it for about 20k more, and the total work time was 5 hours. And to me, obviously to everyone, that's going to sound amazing. 20k made within 5 hours. That's pretty insane if you ask me. That's more than what some people make in
It's
a year.
literally 4K an hour. Who's earning 4K an hour?
4k an hour, exactly. It's crazy. I think that was the numbers anyway. And I just found it pretty cool, and and he's obviously continuously embedded into our heads throughout the whole book. You need to become financially literate, and you would have known how to do this if you were financially literate. Honestly, a great book. Definitely go read it. But that was my favorite bit. I'll pass you on to Zanya now for his favorite bit.
Yeah, so my favorite bit in the book, the bit that kind of stands out is like, well, a lot of people that maybe want more money or just want to get more ahead with money, but can't seem not to. And you hear a lot of excuses. I mean, it's a bit of a hard truth, but there is a lot of excuses out there. Like, it's easy for the rich to say, you don't know my situation, this and that, which is, it is understandable to a degree. But in the book, they show these things that's called the cash flow pattern, and the cash flow pattern is basically how people are spending their income, their money from their income. So it shows three models: one which is the cash flow of a poor person, one which is the cash flow of a middle class, and one which is the cash flow of a wealthy person. So the poor person, it's essentially they get their income and then they end up spending it all on expenses. The expenses that aren't wants, they're needs. So stuff like taxes, rent, food, clothes, transport, which is literally that's all the other income is going to. That's why they cannot get ahead and maybe not be able to have any spare money for assets, to buy assets. The middle class one is so income going to liabilities, which what liabilities are basically the wants, our wants, not our needs necessarily, but our wants. So the car, the loans, the mortgage,
Watch it.
you know, yeah, stuff like that. And then after that is expenses like the needs, which is their rent and whatnot. And then a wealthy person is is their assets, the income from their assets goes straight to their income. And that comes from stuff like real estate, stocks, bonds, notes, all them things. So what you'll hear a lot is like how to purchase these assets, not necessarily how to actually do it, but how do I get the money to do it? Because people think the problem is how much they're earning. You see a lot especially in the UK, a lot of people do complain about minimum wage, how they haven't got enough to buy this and that. But the problem comes from the fact that that's getting said. I mean, so the whole point is the fact that it's not that people can't afford assets. It's the fact that people aren't prioritizing buying assets.
Yeah.
And literally the cash flow pattern, it's just such a simple version, because all it's telling you to essentially do, and what you just talk about, is the fact that the key thing you need to do is, when you get the income, when you get that paycheck, the first thing you need to do is invest a portion of that first thing before. Because what happens is, I think with a lot of people, especially people that are working these jobs while they're at uni and stuff, just these kind of like more low paid part-time jobs maybe, and stuff like retail and food, things like that, is that they just end up spending it on stuff, like nights out, whatever it might be.
Right.
They end up spending it straight away. And that's where the problem comes from. It comes from the fact that they're spending it on things, liabilities, which is things that they essentially don't need. And they're spending it straight away. And when before they know it, all their money's gone. And then they start saying stuff like, oh, I wish my job paid me further. But the thing is, it's behind the mindset. The reason that they're saying my job, like if their job did go on to pay them more, the same problem would happen, because they're spending all their money. They just end up spending it on more important, more expensive, things, more expensive, maybe drinks, maybe clothes, whatever it might be. So the key essentially is to invest parts of your income, whatever it might be, because I know in the UK, like, we are quite fortunate to have, I'd say, pretty high wages for the jobs. Minimum wage for over 18 is like what? It's like, what is it, like £10 an hour, £9 an hour?
7 to
Something
£10 an hour, so
Yeah,
depending.
something like that. I know for young people it's like £5 an hour, but
Yeah,
fairly, that's all right. I mean, if you're working for 40 hours a week, that adds up. And I think with that money, investments can be made. Personally, I think that
exactly, definitely.
100%.
Yeah,
So
and
the whole kind of, sorry, bro, go on.
no, you go. It's fine.
So, but yeah, the whole problem is, I think, is just the fact that that's the simple equation. You need to, as soon as that income comes, there's a lot of things where it's like you can subscribe to like invest, like it's where, like, you can do this on Coinbase. I know with crypto, you can set out an amount they want you to take from your bank every week or month or whatever. I think that's a pretty good idea, because especially for someone that's just getting into investing.
Yeah, definitely.
Personally, so yeah, that's my favorite part of the book, definitely, because it lays it out so simply. It's just the fact that that's it. It's just where your money's going. As soon as you get that paycheck, what are you doing with it? Because what you do with it is literally the most important thing. Because I'm not saying you can't, you might have to kind of cut back on what you're spending on, but definitely if you just take it now as just maybe 10% of your income, 20%, whatever you can do, and whatever you like. And like I said, like, a lot of people might say their expenses are too much, their needs, like, for example, their rent and stuff. But I think also, to an extent, needs can also be wants, because maybe your rent for your apartment in your apartment's rent is too much for what you actually need, or the food you're buying might be a bit too expensive to what you can really afford.
Yeah.
So I think these little cutbacks can add up to that 10% that you can put into investments. And obviously, it's not like you're losing money with an investment. It's just the fact that you're growing it, and you're growing your money over time. So that's what I liked about the book, personally. The fact that it simplifies the fact why it's, honestly, that's the main reason why there is this wealth gap. Definitely, it's just because of spending habits. That's literally it.
Exactly. Now, Zanyar mentioned something, in the podcast. Sorry, Zanyar mentioned something that I did a previous topic about in a previous podcast called "Rich versus a Lot of Money," and he said it's kind of what's in your mind and like how you, obviously, like, your mindset towards it, right? And I've always stressed that being rich and having a lot of money is very, very different. If you won the lottery, in my opinion, personally, you're not rich unless you have the mindset. Okay.
Definitely.
Very, very, very important thing. And, that's going to kind of lead me onto a story, just very small personal story that I encountered very recently, like very, very recently, like a couple of days ago. I said to my mum, because she plays the lottery, I'm not going to stop her. She just does that. But she plays the lottery, and I said to her, if we win, we're investing it, right? And she was like, she literally laughed in my face, and she said, you can you can invest your share, and obviously I'll do whatever with mine. And I was like, what are you going to do? And she said, I don't know, holidays. I'm like, wouldn't you rather invest it, wait a few more months and buy even more holidays? She was like, and she just started like, oh no, no, blah, blah. Like, I can't really convince her. She's more in that kind of middle class / poor mindset, right? And I can't, I'm not going to force her to change. It's her, devoted to her. I can if I wanted to. However, I don't need to. I'm just going to kind of focus on myself and build my my asset column and stuff. And talking about assets as well, like, going back to that story, if you have the same mindset as me and Zanyar and everyone else that has the same mindset, you'd understand the frustration we feel when we're told that. Obviously, we don't act upon that frustration, but it's just like, what are you talking about? See, I love my mum very dearly, and everyone in my family, but none of them kind of think this kind of way. And I'm not from a poor background. I'm not from a super rich background, but
We're
I'm
both
stable.
from like middle class backgrounds, aren't we?
Exactly. But I don't want to be in the middle class mindset for the rest of my life. That's why I'm starting this young, providing knowledge for these people, because I know if I give and if I teach, I will return in some way. And I'm doing it not purely to return, not purely to get stuff in return, but I'm purely giving because I know the joy it brings for other people, especially when I teach people new things within trading. They generally like send me a long ass paragraph saying thank you so much, Rod, this, that. That is so much more important than the money aspect. Honestly, I cannot stress that enough. Just quickly as well, just really want to quickly define asset and kind of what separates the middle class from the rich, or the poor from the rich. The rich people know what an asset is. The poor and middle class don't. Very simply, and I love the way Robert kind of put the meanings of an asset and a liability in this book. Very simply and very easily put, an asset is something that puts money inside your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket.
Yeah, so
very simply. I'm going to say that again. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. Very simple, but very powerful definitions that you should all take a note of if you don't know that already. Okay. Liabilities, again, like Zanya said, the watches, the cars, things that aren't putting money in your pocket, things that taking money out. Those of you that are homeowners, you think your own home is an asset. Unless it's not making you any money, that, my friend, is a liability. It's taking money out of your pocket. If you disagree with me all you want.
Yeah. A lot of people argue that, a lot of people would argue that, how a lot of like real estate does appreciate. So I understand if you're living in your house for 20 years and you make a profit on that, or a profit to what you bought it, I understand. But the thing is, a house isn't just the fact that you bought it for small and you sold it for expensive. It's the fact that you put money into your house. You got the bills, you got the rent. I mean, like the mortgage is interest. A lot of people that have really long mortgages, I know their interest ends up taking out the appreciation they make when they sell the house. And I mean, I understand there has been some cases, especially in like London, where like the real estate has like gotten really expensive over the last 10-20 years, where people have made a huge amount of profit off their house. And fair play to that. But I think in general, most people's homes are taking money out. When you ask people what's like the majority of their income going to, a lot of it is going to be the mortgage or the bills, those type of things that's associated to the home they live in.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. And I just kind of want to talk about something that he did put in this book, and he didn't put it in for very long. It was quite small. It was about 8 or 9 pages, I think, excluding the study session, which was also another really good thing. Actually, he put study sessions at the end of every chapter to basically implement what you've just read in a kind of summary, right? So if you ever want to go back to the book, literally just go to the study sessions instead of reading every single word for word, which I find is really good. But something he did add was the history of taxes and the power of corporations. And I found kind of learning about the history of taxes really opened my mind to the 3 different classes: the middle class, the rich class, or the upper class, and the working class, right? Very, very good. The middle class and I'll just give it really 1 minute quick rundown. Middle class and the rich, they basically voted for taxes, right, in order to try and tax the rich, obviously in order to kind of give them kind of more money, right? That's kind of what their brief the brief kind of overview is what actually ended up happening is obviously they voted taxes, and obviously taxes obviously went through, and that kind of rebounded back on the middle and the working class, right? The rich are too smart to obviously be affected by these taxes. They know how to work around it, and with working with things such as corporations, right? With corporations, what you're able to do is actually pay your taxes after paying yourself. And I'm not going to talk about every single topic in this book, so I don't want to elongate this podcast too much, but paying yourself, which is basically like, putting any money you need to in investment, is much, much, better than obviously being taxed first. And obviously, you know what I'm trying to say, right? So having that corporation, obviously look into more of that. I'm obviously not going to give you the whole education on what a corporation is and stuff like that, but obviously I'm sure some of you know already. But yeah,
literally, I remember what it says. Yeah, it's like business owners that, with corporations, they'll earn, spend, then pay their taxes. But someone that works for a corporation, an employee, earns, then pays their taxes, then spends. And that's literally it. And the thing is, what you'll hear a lot from people, which does quite annoy me, is the fact that they think this is kind of like a bit of a scam. They think, oh, the rich, oh, they're not paying their taxes the same as us. But the whole reason kind of behind this is the fact that you see businesses, you need to remember that they are helping the economy. And the fact that they pay themselves first, so, for example, they can invest into their business. So say a business makes 100,000 profit for that year, they can invest every penny of that profit back into the business, which means they'll get 0% tax. You've got to remember, where is that investment going? It's still going to the economy. It's going towards employees, which then pay their taxes. So you need to also remember, I think it's annoying when people say it's a scam, or, it's a loophole, like it's something dodgy. It's not really.
Yeah.
I think it's literally, they're just kind of benefiting the economy in their own way, instead of just directly giving money to the government. They are still helping the government and the country that they live in, definitely. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I personally agree with Zanya, but yeah, anyway, cool. Shifting on. So we spoke about our favorite bits and just kind of like the bulk of the story. I say one of my least favorite bits was probably like how can I say it? It's like you weren't truly directed where to purchase assets, where to purchase certain things. And I understand because but that's obviously backed up by the fact that he says you need to become financially literate. This is kind of like a starting guide to kind of push you to it's like a foundation, right? It's basically the building blocks to obviously building your career much higher and stuff. And obviously that's fine. That's the base of the book. I don't expect him to tell me where to buy certain things. It's not a handout really. That's kind of for me to do. But because I enjoyed the book so much, that's probably the only flaw I could probably think about this book, really, in my opinion. What about you, Zanya? What was your least favorite bit?
My thing about this book is the fact that, especially that this book's kind of dedicated to people that are maybe stuck in a bit of a rut with their finances. The thing is, I think a lot of people argue that they can't afford assets, and I understand what they might kind of say in that. It's because in the book it doesn't really emphasize the fact that, for an asset like a house or whatever, it does cost a lot of money for you to make a substantial lot of profit. Like, I understand that a lot because, for example, a house, with a house, if you want to put a bit of money down on a house or whatever, you're still going to need, quite a lot of money. Like, if you want a normal kind of, and from where I'm from in the East Midlands in the UK, you need to put down a good 20, 30, 40,000 pounds, like minimum, if you're buying a house, a decent house for that, as in a down deposit. And I understand a lot of people might say, that they haven't got that and stuff. And I understand in this book, it doesn't really emphasize the fact that assets are expensive. It's not as simple as just buying and you're going to have money starting working. I know the idea of money working for you is really good, but at the end of the day, investing something like, £5, £10 into a 10% a year asset is not going to make you the best amount of money. But I think that's where it kind of comes in, that you do, to buy like, a good amount of assets that can cover your expenses, you do need a high income skill to start with. Personally, that's what I believe. You're going to need a lot of money to start out. You're going to need to do something like trading, like sales and working for commissions, stuff like that, or some sort of kind of business and entrepreneurship, because there's not really a lot of, I think, jobs that have salaries that are that high to kind of cover, investing
at
into
a beginner point.
Definitely, yeah. Like, the average salary in the UK is like £30,000, and I can understand someone earning £30,000 a year, it's going to take them a long time to save up something like 20, 30, 40,000 pounds to put into a house or to put into stocks. So I think this book should have kind of talked about that. I know that's not really the context of the book, but it should have talked more about, personally, I think, the fact that you do need a high income skill to then invest into these assets and then make a good, substantial amount of money from those assets, because it's not as simple as just a £500, even £5,000 might not be enough to cover your expenses, which, I just think that should have kind of been covered. The fact that I didn't cover that, I just kind of, I'm kind of against that. But that's about it.
Yeah. So same. Like what I'd actually kind of like to talk about as well is like there's like the implementation. Sorry, you can obviously do after reading the book. Usually, what some people actually find, and I've found myself before, and I have fixed on it, by the way, so don't obviously like hold me to it. But once you read a book and it has all these steps and all these things to do, you just don't do it afterwards.
Yeah.
It's very easy to do that because once you've read the book, you're really eager to get into the next book, onto the next thing to read, and you kind of disregard everything. Now, I know definitely from Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm going to implement every single thing he said within that book. Purchase assets, become financially literate. That's one of my main goals for 2020 is become financially literate. And I would invest. I would. What's the word? I'd really urge all of you to do the same thing, because and not even just from financial literacy, just kind of obviously do that, but take every book that you read, everything that it tells you, do it. Otherwise, you're literally reading it for no reason. What you actually find as well when you have after you read a book, 400, 500 pages as well. What you actually tend to do is when you have conversations with people that you've spoke to before, you'll feel more wiser. You feel more wiser upon conversation. I think that's something pretty cool. But anyway, I'm going to talk about implementation that Robert even provided for us after we read the book or during even reading the book is the game Cash Flow. Very, very, very useful game. I definitely would recommend all of you to play it.
It's quite fun as well.
Yeah, it's fun, exactly. It's a great way, instead of just being lectured and being like, fucking told to sit down, open your pen and pad and just write every fucking thing you're told, which hardly you're learning, in my opinion. I don't think, I generally am strongly against that way of teaching, but he's put it into a game. He's made it fun for everyone, all ages as well. Like that's kind of, you could even be seen as a kid game. I showed Zanyar and we played it together and, Zanyar really
it's actually very fun. I cannot lie.
Yeah, it is really fun. And it's quite good as well, because what you're doing is, the main aim of the game obviously is to get your passive income greater than your expenses, right? And it kind of tells you how to do that in subtle ways. Like obviously there will be little flaws in there, like a divorce, for example. Like you could get divorced like 3 times in a row, and like obviously that's not gonna
lose all your money.
Yeah, you lose all your money with that, and it's just a bit annoying. But definitely would recommend after you read this book or during reading it, once you get a little bit of understanding on assets and liabilities, maybe you have done from this podcast or not, definitely go and play that game and play it with a friend or play it with random people across the world. You can even network with people. You can even chat to people on the game, because they have
there's like open kind of groups that you can join, open games.
Yeah, exactly. There's a chat log in the bottom right, and you can chat to people and advertise anything you need to advertise. Like I showed the website. Someone actually did check out the website. He said it looked pretty good. So no, that was quite cool to hear. And like just from something as little as that, I'm taking full advantage of my resources as well that I can obviously use and stuff. But yeah, definitely would recommend Cash Flow. But sorry for that. But yeah, so kind of draws to an end. But I want to give a rating of this book, and I'm going to be honest. This was probably one of the best, if not the best book I've ever read. Definitely for business. I think mindfulness, when it comes to mindfulness and spiritualness, that would be The Power of Now. I'm currently reading Think and Grow Rich, so I'm only like quarter of the way through. So, and I'm very much enjoying it. But with this book so far, I'm definitely gonna have to give it a 10 out of 10. I can't really think of any flaws. Zanyar, what would you give it?
I mean, in my business books, I'll definitely put it in the top 5. I'd probably give it like a 9 out of 10. I just think there's a few things that's missing. I think it kind of, I understand it's not really the context of the book, but I think the book does kind of like does need to kind of also say that, I just don't think, for example, entrepreneurship is for everyone, but I do think investing is for everyone. I think everybody should invest, and that's And that is kind of what the main book's about. I just think it's lacking a few things, just also about how it's not as easy to kind of buy assets as it puts it. But apart from that, I give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, it's pretty good rating in my opinion. Those of you that have read it, obviously, I'm sure you can relate to a lot of stuff that we're saying. Maybe you challenge a lot of stuff that we're saying, and maybe you challenge what Robert was saying in this book as well. Because I know that it did even say in like at the end of it. I don't know if have you got study sessions in your book or not?
Yeah, I've got
Yeah,
them.
because in the study sessions it says, like what was Robert saying?
Yeah.
Do you agree with it? It doesn't matter if you agree. It doesn't matter if you disagree. As long as
Yeah,
you,
honestly, it's very, definitely.
yeah. Like as long as you understand what you're saying,
That's
kind
it.
of implement it. Obviously, if you do agree and you want to follow through with it, which I would recommend you do.
Because at the end of the day, he is like a multi-millionaire, and
Exactly, and
well,
he's
I'm not. So
exactly, and
yes,
he's been there,
yes,
and
and
he's
he's
done
been through it. Yeah,
exactly, and he's obviously written a book, and it's obviously done very well, and he's had a lot of feedback. He's got his ball rolling really. So, but
definitely.
other than that, guys, hopefully you have enjoyed the first episode. Obviously, welcome to Zanyar. He's going to be with us for the next 10 episodes of this season. We've got 10 books obviously to talk about, and I definitely would recommend reading it. This book, for me, 10 out of 10. For him, 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Very, very highly recommended. But other than that, guys, I'm going to draw it to a close. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you have a great start to your week from tomorrow if you're listening to this on Sunday. Or if you're listening to it on Monday, hopefully this fires you up and hopefully gives you a new book to read as well if you haven't read it. Other than that, guys, see you in a bit. Love from me and Zanyar. Happy trading. I'll see you in a bit.
Bye bye.